Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and joining us here at Mold Talks. I'm your host, Michael Rubino, author of The Mold Medic, founder of All American Restoration. I have a very special guest. Her name is Tessa. And Tessa, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to this talk. Hi, my name is Tessa, and I'm a certified functional nutrition counselor and owner of Nourishing Functional Health. I work with women who struggle with chronic inflammation and its many symptoms such as brain fog, fatigue, and chronic pain. We work together in developing a strategy to decrease inflammation by improving gut function, liver health, and improving the body's detoxification process. So if additional treatments are necessary, their bodies are able to accept the treatments with minimal to no side effects, which allows them to be the person or the woman that they want to be.
That is awesome. And I'm imagining you have some sort of story that goes with that and how you have identified those exact things to now help others.
Yes. So I have really dealt with chronic illness for the better part of my life. And honestly have been to so many doctors that just were really like, we're not really sure what's wrong with you. You're just going to have to deal with it. And I just didn't really think that that was the quality of life I was meant to have. I did have some worsening of symptoms in 2018 and never in a million years would have made the connections that I know now are related to it. In October of last year, 2020, I woke up in the middle of the night with the worst, most excruciating pain I've ever experienced. Like I literally thought, this is it. Like I don't know what's going on. And I was done. It completely caught me off guard. I didn't have any like things happening ahead of time. The pain was so excruciating. I ended up passing out. And at the time we were having issues with my daughter. She was wanted to only sleep with her father, and I can't sleep with her because she sleeps sideways. Anyway, so I was in the guest bedroom alone when this happened. I woke up to this horrific pain. I passed out, and I woke up maybe about 20 minutes later to realize that I was having all muscle body cramps. Like I may imagine a Charlie horse and multiply it by 100, and then experiencing it in every single muscle that was in your body. So I was able to, I'm not really sure how I was able to, but I had to get downstairs. I knew I needed water and magnesium. I wanted to get magnesium and electrolytes in and just to figure it out. So that's what I did. Not sure how I made it downstairs without falling down the stairs, but I did. And I chugged a whole bunch of water. A lot of coconut water for the electrolytes, potassium. I was looking for potassium, that type of thing. And I have this magnesium supplement that I take that's really gross, and normally I put it in capsules, and I was just like pouring it down my throat. I've had some Charlie horse issues that kind of started in 2018, and now I know that they were kind of together. So I went to the doctor, and my general practitioner doctor, and she's like, yeah, well, that sounds a little weird. I think it's your varicose veins that's causing the problems. Why don't you go see your vein doctor? I'm like, last time I checked, that's not really how that works. I was like, okay, but she took a bunch of blood work. Of course, all of my blood work completely normal, which is super common in chronic illness. And I continued to develop new symptoms. I was like literally going to the bathroom like every 30 minutes. I was supposed to take this long trip by myself without my husband for the first time. My anxiety was through the roof. I had brain fog out the yazoo. And I had a nurse, a functional practitioner that I had seen many years ago, and that I took my daughter to because I have a daughter who is on the spectrum. And she was in a new practice, and I sent her a message. We became friends. I sent her a message. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I need to come see you. Turns out her training now is in chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is caused by mold.
Yes. Dr. Hershey Shoemaker's designation.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So you actually covered a lot of the questions that I have
Sorry.
in the beginning. So
More
it's
story.
amazing. No, it's perfect. So, just to develop the timeline. So when did you first really not start to feel well? When was that I know you said you've been dealing with it your whole life essentially, but was there a pivotal moment that you can kind of trace back to?
Yeah, now I can. Then I had no idea. So in 2018, I started developing these random Charlie horses, but they were just small, like in one, the typical classic area in your calf. I was getting them in my thigh, which was kind of unusual, but the doctors that I was seeing at the time explained it away by the fact that I had eliminated meat from my diet, or depending on what diet I had bounced from, or you're not getting enough minerals, that type of thing. So they explained it away to that. And then I developed a really unusual wound on my leg. No trauma at all. This wound just developed. And it grew MRSA. I mean, I'm a young, relatively healthy. I was eating perfectly. I had eliminated my food sensitivities, lots of outside time. It just so much that did not make sense. And the doctors, I started having rashes, and the doctors were giving me creams, and I was reacting to every single thing they gave me, everything topical, everything oral. I was having these significant reactions to. I had to see a special wound doctor. Like, I was the youngest person in the office. Like, they were like 40. Everybody else in the room was like 40 years older than I was. And I was like, this is not right. But I was able to manage it. Now I know that there's a connection to that. So that was really the big, that big first moment that was related to the illness I'm dealing with now.
And when did you actually realize that it was mold? So you said that you didn't realize it right away.
No. And when I went to see my functional practitioner, she knew right away from the list of symptoms I had given her. And she mentioned it to me. I was like, there is no chance I have mold. My house is brand new. I moved into my house in 2016. My house is clean. I keep it, vacuumed, and I have animals and a kid, but I keep it clean. There's no sign of molds. There's no chance. I was very much in denial. So she's like, well, pretty sure that's what you have going on. But she put me on something, and she ran a ton of tests. And it, sure enough, I got a call from her. She goes, well, you have mold. Now you need to find it in your house. And that's the only guidance I got.
Yeah, well, that is, better guidance than most will give you off the bat, because as you know, a lot of clients have gone from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor before someone even says mold.
Yeah.
Then, there needs to be more guidance. Like, hey, you should probably get with a mold inspector to inspect the home and find out where the sources of water intrusion are really creating these sources of mold growth, and allowing for this to grow and spread across the house and impact the immune system, right? So, it definitely more guidance is being needed. And that's why, I wrote the book, The Mold Medic, and why I have Mold Talks is to really help other people connect these dots. Because, unfortunately, I mean, I've talked to people who have gone 20 years with mysterious illnesses until they finally pinpointed their environment. And it's a shame, because it's all avoidable, right? And that's the key. If you would have found out sooner, you could have done something about it sooner, not let all these years go by, right? So that's the big thing. So speaking of that, did you have this journey of having to go from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, and if so, how many?
Well, specific to mold, I was very lucky that I had a friend I'd seen before, and she turned out to have trained with the Shoemaker protocol. And so awesome. I didn't have to bounce from starting on October. I didn't have to bounce from doctor to doctor. When the symptoms began in 2018, yes, I went to several like doctors and they had no clue. I mean, the wound doctor was amazing. And he's like, I've never seen anything like it. You're too young for this. This doesn't make any sense. And he never made that connection, never made the connection that there might have been an environmental input that was triggered this type of weird scenario.
I would challenge you to reach back out to him and let him know, because I think, each of us has an opportunity to try to make change. He may not accept it because, to him, it may not connect the dots for him, because he's, so used to seeing certain things and knowing that there's different classifications and treatments for those classifications. But, for many people, once these dots are connected, these light bulbs turn on, it really is like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I mean, if you read almost any medical journal, it'll tell you the 3 major reasons people get sick in the first place: genetics, predispositions, and the environmental impacts. And environmental impacts can affect the other 2 parts of this. So to me, it makes perfect sense, but our medical community doesn't seem to look at that nearly as much as they should. And all it does is to start with some simple questions like, were you exposed to any water damage as a child? Did you live near, a golf course where there could be glyphosate exposure? Like all these different environmental impacts that would kind of alter our toxic load inside the body. But it just seems like it all gets lost in translation. So it would be really interesting to reach out and see what happens.
He's a pretty cool guy. I bet you he'd probably be pretty open to it.
Maybe like, oh wow, that's amazing.
Never thought about that.
Would have never guessed. Yeah. So you explained a little bit about this, but I'd love to hear more. If you don't mind firing off, what were your symptoms, just so that other people who may be experiencing similar things can help connect with that?
Of course. So I had a lot of fatigue, just exhaustion. I would wake up in the morning and still be exhausted, even though I felt that I'd slept really well. I had significant brain fog. And let me tell you, when you're raising a kid and who has special needs and stuff, it was just kind of mind boggling. Luckily, she was old enough, but literally I would like sit down on the sofa to watch a movie or something with her and I would be out like a light. I developed the need to urinate like every 20 to 30 minutes. And I'm not talking like just small, I'm talking full bladder amounts, which can be now I know it's a common symptom. I have multiple chemical sensitivity reactions. So any smells, even touching things. I mean, I've led a relatively toxin-free home for a while because of my daughter and her needs, and knowing, what the environment can do to worsen some of the symptoms that she had. So, but just even going into other people's houses or being around people I had perfume, I instant migraines, I had skin rashes. I literally, like in the summertime, sweat. I felt like I was allergic to my own sweat. Like I would just get covered in rashes and itchiness, but I couldn't use anything on it because I would react to that. So I was like, literally like walk around in the summer like that. Don't go outside. Making things worse because I was inside all the time. Yeah. Chronic pain. So I had a lot of joint pain, my ankles, primarily, some in my knees, just feeling really heavy in my legs. I had significant edema or swelling in both of my ankles, mainly on my right side, but I excused it away because I'd had surgery as a baby on that side and things weren't, normal or whatever. Let's see here. I was having chronic, like yeast infections, on my skin and other places. And moody. I was super moody. Like my husband just walked on eggshells around me because I just would snap at the drop of the hat. So I think that probably, I'm sure there might be some more. I have developed more since then, but initially, and now I have things like ear ringing. I get ice pick pains in my arms sometimes. I have tingling or numbness in my fingertips and my toes. Sometimes I'm super hot. I get hot flashes, or I'm super cold. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, no, it's dreadful. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you've had to go through that, and I know this is a healing journey, and
Mhm.
so you still may be dealing with some of these things. But I'm glad that you're opening up and being vulnerable and sharing, so that others who may have similar symptoms that maybe haven't connected the dots yet can say, I wonder if my environment plays a role into this. So thank you for doing that and sharing that with us. Um, how did it impact your life and being able to do normal everyday activities?
Well, I was tired all the time. I was afraid to drive because I was worried I would doze off, worse with me or with my daughter in the car. Um, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to play with her. My daughter, I didn't want to do stuff with her. I didn't want to do anything with anybody. So I, kind of closed in. I definitely wasn't being a very good parent or a good wife, or taking care of myself. I was very forgetful. I would, and this is something that some of the things I'm still struggling with, but friends, because I would forget events, even things like birthdays, even if stuff writing down, I would forget all of that stuff. And so people would see it as I didn't want to be their friend. Whereas in reality, you more than anything need the friendship. You just can't remember how to be a friend or what to do or remember the important stuff to be the friend. And so that it's a very lonely journey because of that. You just, and then working, we needed income. And so to be able to work was difficult. Before I began this journey, I was a licensed veterinary technician, and I worked in a barn. And so I was very forgetful regarding some things there that ultimately I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I cannot safely be here anymore, and with concerns of the patients. So
yeah, I mean, maybe you have some exposures there too, potentially.
Oh, I'm
being
sure.
in the barn. Yeah,
It's very possible. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I could definitely understand how difficult it can be to be a parent, be a spouse when you're not feeling well. And there's got to be psychological effects that you were experiencing too. I don't know if you'd like to share some of those impacts, but I know I speak to people every day, and I really see the tough times that people go through when they're experiencing this, and it's just really important that you have a good support system around you, and it can be very challenging if someone's never experienced what it is you're going through. See, for me, I have this luxury of I tend to get sensitive to certain species of molds, and I experience that a lot when I'm traveling, in hotel rooms and things like that. So I have seen the physiological effects of this. The psychological effects I've never had to experience. And so the only way that I know how challenging it is by speaking to amazing people like you every day that share these things with me. And it gives me a new perspective, right? Because a lot of people get gaslit. They go to places, and that just adds to the psychological frustration. You start to think, am I crazy? Because you're going to doctors and they're like, that doesn't exist, and you're like, okay, I feel it. You can't tell me it doesn't exist. I feel it. And so it's very interesting how people really get shunned in this journey. And it's really nice to have such a support system around that. And I'm sure that that's something that you're able to do now that you're kind of maybe not all the way through it, but now that you're through the tunnel enough where you can see the other side and you can help people get through that tunnel, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah. To finally have light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that everything you've gone through, it's like, oh, finally, there is an end. It might be a distance away, but it's there. It's definitely is a relief. One of the things I forgot to mention, it's probably a big one, that I struggle with is the inflammation created by the mold I have leptin resistance. So I am unable to lose weight, and gain weight, but gaining weight is not an issue. And it's very frustrating to know that you're doing absolutely everything perfectly, eating exactly the way you need to be, and are still gaining weight and struggling with that. But in my mind, I know that all I'm doing is setting my body up for success, that once enough inflammation clears, then the weight will start to shut off. But that is really, as a health coach, you're like, yeah, I know I'm really overweight, but I can help you, so there's some stuff that goes along with that. But that adds a level of exhaustion for being able to, do things with my family. Like we used to like to go hiking and do outdoor stuff. And it's too exhausting for me to do with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and like it is a journey, and you will obviously overcome these last little bits of things and get to the other side and fully through that tunnel. And I know that it's got to be joyful helping people get through that tunnel in the process right there with you. And it's amazing as a group when a group can band together and say, we're all experiencing similar things. It may be different, but similar, all due to the fact that of environmental impacts. Some of us have had exposures as kids and adults and vice versa. So, it's really just getting through that and realizing it is kind of step one, right? And then once you know about it, you can do something about it. And so once you have that step done, it's easier to start taking steps towards getting through that tunnel. And it's like you said, it's definitely some challenges there. I appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable with us today. I want to ask, because I think this is hopefully it doesn't bring you through too difficult of a time, but do you remember like the worst day ever that you had to experience, and what was that like?
So I feel like I have kind of two worst days. That initial day of that pain. I mean, waking up that first time to having all of your muscles cramping, drenched in sweat, and then passing out, that was definitely super scary. It was just like, is this the end? I don't understand what's going on. But then a couple weeks later, I was going to visit my mom and taking my daughter with me. I was driving a car, just the two of us for the first time, in what was supposed to be a 6-hour car drive. Normally anything longer than like 3 or 4 hours. It's my husband and I, and he does all the driving. So, on this journey, it was supposed to be about 6 hours long. It was a 9.5-hour drive. Right before I left, the increased in urination started. So I literally, I went to the bathroom, we left our house, and between here and North Carolina, we hit every Sheetz and every rest stop possible to use the bathroom. And one time I had to pull over on the side of the road with my daughter in the car. I mean, I kept apologizing to her. I'm sorry, baby, you're being so good. I'm so proud of you. And she's like, she knew something was wrong. So she has a lot of empathy for that kind of thing. And so she was like, it's okay, mommy, you're doing all right. But it was the biggest failure ever. And then I'm going to a place where I don't have all of my stuff for the support. It was, yes, I was going to my mom. So that was helpful. Turned out her house was clean. So when I got there, I ended up going to urgent care because I was worried I had diabetes, because the urination was it was super scary. And my father had diabetes. So I thought, okay, this is it. I'm having like keto. I don't know. I didn't know what was going on. I went to urgent care and they're like, maybe you should stop drinking as much water as you're drinking. I'm like, what? I mean, the urine test was normal, but that was their response. They're like, well, how much water are you drinking? I'm like, well, I'm drinking half my body weight in water. Like you're supposed to. Use. Oh, you're drinking too much water. I'm like, all right, thank you very much. But my mom's house was clear, and within 36 hours of being there, almost all of my symptoms completely resolved. All of them.
Wow. Ain't that a testament to, the environment? Wow. I it really frustrates me that, on almost every story you go to a doctor, there's at least one of these doctors, and you're like, hey, something's not right. And they're like, what are you doing? It's like, it's all your fault. And it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. That's why I'm here. If I knew what I was doing, if I knew what was happening.
That's your job.
You're supposed to help me figure out what's going on. But it's always like, it's the user error is always like the first thing that comes to their mind. It really frustrates me because, I would imagine there's some things that, I could do better to be healthier, right? That there's just a lack of education on there. But for the most part, if I'm not feeling well, it's usually not because I did something, it's because I was in contact somewhere. I went to a place that was dirty, contracted a virus. Yeah, there's some sort of bacteria in the air, right? Something. It's usually not what did I do, right? And so I hate how that gets like the first thing you do is like, I need help, and they just turn the table around. What did you do? So I want to get to some good news. That was definitely a heartfelt story, and I put myself in your shoes because I have 2 little kids, and just having to pull over to the side of the road and explain to your kid, that really hit home for me. I just really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story here. I want to get to some good parts because the whole point of this is to show people that, yes, we go through these things. Yes, it's, you have to really find out that this is a problem before you can ever do something about it. But now that once you know and you can do something about it, right, you can take these actionable steps. So when did you start to finally feel better? We know you're not 100%, but where was that turning point of you actually starting to feel like you're making headway here?
Honestly, as soon as we figured out what the problem was, I feel like I started to have I felt relief. So the stress is a huge problem on your body, and it makes all of the health issues can make it worse. So reducing that amount of stress was super helpful. So my home was remediated in February, was not done correctly, but there was a window of time where parts of it was, there was some relief in that time frame. Sure. To be honest, we just recently located some additional mold in our home. So stuff that was not done properly the first time around, and then turns out it's in our HVAC system. So I would recommend not living in your home, but unfortunately that's not an option for me. So I feel really well. So it's kind of hard to say. I am able to easily manage a lot of my symptoms, and I know that being outside of the house I feel a lot better. And I know that soon the remediation, it's been scheduled, so we're just waiting for them to waiting on a date for them to be able to treat our home completely, and it's a huge relief. When I'm not in the home or staying at my mom's, and those some of the big symptoms that are extra annoying resolve, like the ringing in my ears is just awful. It's like both ears all day long. The joint pain is improves. So I know that once it's completely gone, then I know that a lot of these things I'm going to start feeling a lot better. So, but I am managing my symptoms, have reduced some of the edema, and am comfortable. The brain fog is a lot less. So
Awesome. When did that start happening? How long ago? When did the symptoms started to become more manageable and lessen?
I would say the practitioner I see, she's pretty good at what she does. So the symptoms were definitely more manageable, say in January, February time than after the first remediation. And then the bulk of our issues are, So I'll still say February.
Cool. Well, that's good. I mean, that's obviously good. And it sounds like, well, it's never good to hear that the remediation wasn't successful. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where my background is. And I've heard it far too often that definitely needs improvement. Kind of why I wrote the book, The Mold Medic, An Expert's Guide on Mold Removal, because really you have to know as a customer, right? As a homeowner, as a renter, how do you deal with it so that you can vet the right people to make sure you have a better chance of success? And even when you know everything and you vet the right people, you still have to, work with people who have high integrity and want to do the right thing. And you have to repeat that project after project. You can never take your foot off the gas on that. And so that can be a challenge, in and of itself. So I'm glad that you have a remediation scheduled and you're going to pick up where you left off and get that final bit out. And I'm curious to see how that helps you on your journey. I would imagine it's only going to keep helping, creating a better healing environment for you to detoxify.
For sure. Yep.
That's exciting.
I really struggled with trying to find the right companies where you hear all the stories. Well, some people hear all the stories, sure. But it just turns out that there's two different type of remediators out there. I feel like the ones that treat like acute water exposure, and then those that are treating a home for chronic illness. At least that's been my experience.
You're exactly right. That's where it is now. What it should be, is it should just be across the boards. Standards, right? But right now, there's some missing fundamentals, mm-hmm. and essentially, there's most of the mold remediation companies that exist today. They're really just water restoration companies, and so they're doing some of it. They're not doing all of it. And if you're someone who's dealing with chronic illness, you need someone who's going to be really thorough and make sure all of it's addressed. And when you it's really no fault of their own, because the systems that we use to educate ourselves are pretty antiquated and are really more geared towards like the insurance industry, dealing with an insurance problem. And really what we're trying to come to terms with is this isn't just an insurance problem. This is actually a health problem. You need to actually handle the environment in a way where you're removing the source, you're removing the contaminants created by those source, but you're also fixing whatever allowed the opportunity for it to happen in the first place. And without addressing those three things, mold remediation will fail time and time again, because those three things all need to be done in tandem for it to be successful. And unfortunately, for far too long, it's like you had to go through a failed remediation before you were able to connect the dots to then do the right remediation. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but it sounds like you have found someone you like and you think things are good. That's fantastic.
Yes.
So then that brings me to my next question is, what would you recommend to others who are going through similar challenges?
Don't live in your house. If you can get out. So you can stay with a friend. I would not recommend living in your home, because that's just going to create more symptoms. And then supporting your body. So even though you might not feel some benefits, you're benefiting your body. So the mold depletes a lot of things in your body. So making sure you're supplementing or eating the foods that can replace those things, like your magnesium and your zinc. And then there's certain, and don't jump right into treatment. So if you start researching and you're like, oh, I have to start this binder, this medication, or do this, don't start it right away. You've got to make sure that your body's able to handle releasing those toxins, or you're going to get more and more sick. So work on your gut and your liver and detoxification. And if you can, get out of your house. And if you can't, get a really, really good air filter. Purifier for a space that's your space.
Yeah, I'd agree with all those statements. And yeah, the big misconception with detoxifying is you just kind of do a detox bomb, try to get everything moving, but you're going to circulate all these toxins at once, and your body has had its pathways shut down pretty much for so long, it has nowhere to go, right? So it's just going to create this toxicity that is just going to overload all over again. You got to kind of do things in proper sequence. It's just like fixing a car, like fixing a house, fixing a body. It has to be done in the right steps. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels. And when you spin your wheels, you can also really feel like crap and actually feel much, much worse. So it's important to speak to someone like you who's gone through this that can help kind of guide someone down the right path, which I definitely brings up my next question is, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, learn more about your business, and how you might be able to help them?
So they can find me lots of different places, but I have a website. It's www.nourishingfunctionalhealth.com. They can find me on Instagram. That's probably where I do most of my education there. And they can schedule a free health strategy call. So if they just want to talk, like, is there a chance I've been exposed or not exposed, or do I need help or anything like that? I have a free 30-minute call where we can just talk about things like that. And if we feel that we'll talk about it together. And if we feel that additional things are needed, and I can help them, then I'll give them that information. And if I can't help them, I'll guide them to somebody who can.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And any other parting advice that you'd like to leave before we wrap up here?
To trust your gut. If you're struggling with any type of chronic illness, anything, that you need to test and rule out that you're not being exposed to mold. There's just such a huge population of people out there that's just not able to get rid of it without assistance, that it's almost, it's good to rule it out. Like, it's not going to hurt you at all to test your house and test your body for mold. If it's negative, great, then you can move on and do something else. But if there's a slim chance that your body is being exposed to the toxins of mold and it's creating a ton of inflammation and wreaking havoc on your body, wouldn't you want to know that sooner than later?
Yeah, like we said earlier, you can't do something about something that you don't know what it is, right? And so right. It's just running diagnostics, and for far too long, we've had, everybody really as a society just ignoring the fact that the environment plays a part in our health and well-being. And so it's looking at the environment as a piece of the puzzle, because if you've tried everything else and nothing seems to be working, it's typically the environment. So, Tessa, thank you so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate it. Everything that you shared was just such valuable information. Thank you again. And, thank you guys who are listening in and checking in the Mold Talks. And we hope this was as informative as we felt it was. And thank you very much.
Thank you.